Hello out there. This is the Business Spotlight Series. I'm Sean Schoenmakers, the owner of ActionCOACH Dallas, where we are helping business owners build and grow their businesses to ultimately improve their lives. Today, we have Greg King on with us, and he is the owner of Team NILO. And he's going to be telling us some of the details about his company and his story and how he's gotten where he is, and what he's thinking about doing in the future, and all those kinds of cool things. And so we're excited to have you on, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here, Sean. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, good to have you. And so if this is your first time on the channel, for the viewers, if this is your first time on the channel, make sure you like and subscribe, do all those things so you can get notifications when we drop more of these interviews and conversations into the channel so that way you can see them and continue to get some of the interesting strategies and things like that someone like Greg is going to tell us about. So without further ado, Greg, can you introduce us to your company and tell us, please, the problems that you solve?
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me on the show. Excited to share Team Nilo and the mission, vision, and the problems that we're solving. So, for the audience that may or may not know, June 30th, 2021, the Supreme Court ruled that student athletes can monetize off their name, image, and likeness. And so, what that means in today's world is if you're an athlete that attends a university, you have a large TikTok following, you're able to do a brand deal and engage and make money from that. And that's something that has not happened since, a very long time. And so, where we stepped into this space as Team Nilo was athletes have always had opportunities to be in the community and use their influence to make an impact, and so we really leaned into that and aligned ourselves with nonprofit organizations, and we created services which we call nilos. And so those services would connect to a student athlete. An athlete would amplify the mission of a nonprofit, and with that they were able to earn compensation. And so, as things have developed over the last 4 years, we've not steered away from the impact and influence in working with nonprofits, but from a marketing or business standpoint, the biggest problem right now, from our standpoint, is really this engagement. And when I say engagement, everyone is building, an audience and targeting, their products and so forth. Universities, they have alumni. A lot of alumni get burnt out when they're giving, but now also to be competitive to sports. Brands tapping into this Gen Z audience, and how do we kind of bridge that gap and have a bigger audience? And then you have athletes, right? Athletes have presence. Not all of them have large following, but how do you bring more visibility, right, and really amplify what makes that athlete unique? And so that's how we kind of determine what engagement means. And so we do three things. One, we do NILOs, which are still these services that help nonprofits. Two, cause marketing, right? So from a campaign standpoint, aligning whether it's rare disease, whether it's bringing awareness to pediatric cancer. And then the third is storytelling. And so storytelling is really where I think the creative part of our agency has leaned in to, where we're able to align a mission or a vision of a cause or brand with an athlete that has that same aligned journey, and then tell that story and then distribute it to broaden the engagement.
That's Sounds comprehensive. And I think it's very interesting the shifts that are being made there in the at the college level. It's almost like I feel like it's kind of like the pros at this point. Basically, they're like small businesses. Each of those players, or at least they can be, and they have that opportunity, and they can. So anyway, just a lot. I'm sure being relatively new in just a few years, a lot of things people don't know. They probably haven't looked much at how to market themselves, and I mean maybe a little bit, but so I think guys like you and your company, they are surely tackling a lot of the newer challenges as this new opportunity now has developed. So it's pretty cool what you're doing. Um, let's get into some of the specifics that make your business maybe a little bit special. And so let's start with how and why did you start this company here, Brett?
Yeah. So the how behind it was we were actually building a SaaS platform. And so if you think about the back end of Amazon, how can you make it very easy to create these services, connect them to an athlete, and then verify that the service actually has been done, right? So from a compliance standpoint, that's a big deal in college sports. And again, as things started to shift, um, we found out quickly that, a SaaS platform was not what was needed. My investor and co-founder, he's a technologist, he's a father, and I myself is a father, but also just seeing where college sports was going, with athletes being able to make money and all the challenges or people's perspectives. um, how could we make really light and paint a different picture and bring better visibility around this whole NIL? And so um, that was the initial why. And if you go back to the question, uh, it was why or how. It wasn't.
How and
Was it
why? Yep.
how
Yep.
how and why? So we stood up the first collective at Oklahoma. It was One Oklahoma with Coach Barry Switzer. And again, that was around the time frame that if you were a nonprofit organization, you could raise money and then you could create these actual services, and that was tax exempt. And so going down the journey, when we aligned, and it was really just the stories that were happening. And it was the intentionality of really aligning, very purpose driven services with athletes, but didn't realize how big user generated content and how big, this influencer marketing space was. We were just all about, hey, how could we get more athletes in the community to give back? And so that's how we got started, and where we've navigated this journey is it's an interesting place.
Yeah. Well, as the market shifts, then so do companies. Hopefully, if they don't, they might be out of business. So yeah, as it's shifting, sounds like you guys are obviously shifting with it, and the needs that are coming from that. So who primarily does your business serve? If I'm in the audience, how would I know if I'm a good fit for your service?
Yeah, so we have intentionally, I think, again, just going with the flow of the market. We've partnered with universities. We've partnered with alumni that support these universities, so individual donors, nonprofit organizations, most recently Stride Bank. So I call them a brand. They have a mission. And then individual athletes. So athletes now in college, they have agents or family members, really anyone out there that is looking to have a better presence, maybe a rebrand or just elevated visibility to really highlight and showcase what makes them unique and attractive to whoever their audience is.
All right. It sounds like a lot of people that could use that, or at least might have that interest or that need. Um, why do your customers choose you? So, what makes your business unique? Why do your clients end up choosing you?
I think it's just the old school way of doing business, being your most authentic self, right? Doing what you say you will do, making sure I'm very hands on, going back to my corporate years in dental and healthcare. And I would say, as the CEO, it is really people are buying me, and what I mean by that is if I say I'm going to show up and these are the deliverables, and here's, uh, I'm not going to make it difficult. I'm going to stay on time. And if you don't like the product, then let's figure out a solution. Right. And I don't look at it as, hey, this is the set amount and this is what you give. It's really, in this day and age, I think it's hard to have customer service and people that really want to support someone else and see them win. And I just have been taught that if someone else is elevated and does well and you provide a good service, it always comes back, whether it's a referral or whether it's, that individual wants to do business with you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, customer focus is what it sounds like, and like you said, customers win probably means you're going to win. So that's
Exactly.
a good focus to have, I think. What about, so from a marketing perspective, just talk about, why clients and customers would choose you. How do they find you, or marketing wise, sometimes, well, many times businesses have challenges generating leads or getting business. What has been maybe the best or the most, the one marketing strategy that's generated the most business?
Wow. I was in dentists, just again, going back to dental, dentists traditionally are not good at you provide a good service and ask for a referral. And that's something that I have learned, whether it's, hey, like and follow my page, or do you have somebody that could use this service right now? Right. Just because it's a no with, the client that you are approaching, it does not mean that they don't have someone that could use that service.
Mhm.
But, you know, I found out quickly, not everyone top of mind is thinking, oh, let me refer. But when you ask, it's amazing how, if you've done good work and you're honest in your approach and very authentic, people want to refer services to their neighbor, their friend, someone they know could value from, benefit from your service.
Yes, you are preaching it, Greg. Yes, it's amazing how many times I chat with businesses and they don't have really any referral strategy. They get referrals, but like you said, many times they're not asking. Like
Right.
it's one of the simplest things you can do. I would say not everyone is most comfortable with
Sure.
it. In fact, usually the first time I ask, "Hey, do you ask for referrals?" It's kind of like maybe
It's
a little bit of a weird face. I'm like, okay, does that hurt you?
right.
That thought, right? So, but again, it's not human nature, I think, to some
No.
degree, and so, but it's like you said, if you do a good job, and I think obviously most people try or they typically do, then why wouldn't someone want to refer someone your way? In fact, I mean, I was just thinking about what was I looking at the other day, and I think I was looking into a CRM, and I already had one, but looking to upgrade. I already pretty much know the one that I plan to use, but I was still like, oh, I still want to chat with someone who like could give me maybe like a referral
Right.
into that because it saves time, saves effort, and so anyways, a lot of good reasons why someone would want to refer if you just give them the chance.
That's
So
right.
yeah,
And I'm a big connector. I've been blessed to have diverse relationships, and I'm a very big relationship person. I believe it's not about a network, it's really about relationships. And so part of just who I am is, how can I help you? How can I refer? And I think a lot of times when people see that you're willing to help them, especially in the time frame that we live in,
yeah,
things like that go a long ways. And I've had referrals, you know, from a year ago of someone that I just said, hey, you know what, it doesn't work for you now, but let me introduce you to someone in my, network. And I get a phone call, hey, do you remember such and such? I do. Well, they told me about you, and
yeah.
I could use your service.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think we talk about a lot is life is a mirror. And usually the people who, because I hear people say, oh, I don't get a lot of referrals. I'm like, that's interesting. Let me ask you a question. Do you refer?
Mm,
Right? So, it's as of course you said, hey, you focus on the customer, then typically if they win, then you win. Same thing. Hey, if you refer, guess what? You might receive
that's right.
referrals, right? So good thing to think about. Hey, am I doing what I can do to not be deserving, because I think we're all deserving, but help influence the ability to get referrals, which again,
That's right.
a lot of ways to do that. So love the fact that you simply ask. I think that's great. When you look back at your journey so far in the business, what would you say has been the most memorable, or maybe the hardest challenge, and how did you overcome it?
Hmm. I would say that there's really two. Is during my dental journey, I have a son that was born with a rare heart disease, and so hypoplastic left heart affects the left ventricle, and knew before he was born that he would have 3 open heart surgeries. Well, you don't prepare for that. One, as a parent; two, as a professional. You know, knowing that this would require surgeries and be in the hospital, and just how do you, from a mental standpoint. And I think that was actually when I leaned in the most and actually grew. And I think what I discovered about, the resilience of people, and just your ability as an individual is during the most toughest times, right? I think that's when a lot of the best performances, I think about Michael Jordan. I think about a lot of people that I know personally, because you're channeling all of these emotions into something that is your craft. And so I think that was a very interesting, period of life. Jaden is doing fine now. And then I would say starting a company and just being able to flow with the market and not just being so, this is what I do. And, it's like you got to listen to the customer, not take your product and say the market needs this, because that's not always the case. And there's a lot of competitors out there that they're willing to, kind of shift, even though they know their core focus may be X. It's like, well, hey, I can do Y and build that relationship, provide a service that's revenue, knowing at some point I can come back and if I see the need, the customer may or may not buy X, but at least I'm still in the room. And so I think it's just been changing direction, north, south, east, west,
Yeah.
knowing still my focus is I want to get to X, right? But
Yeah.
just being able to be nimble.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about different types of salespeople, and salespeople we typically want to be as we teach is a problem solver. Guess what? If you solve people's problems, you might earn some business. And if you're trying, there's another type of salesperson we call a product pusher. And that's not the type of salesperson we typically want to be, but that's the person who is pushing the products or the services. So, like you said, hey, instead of going out and saying, you need XYZ and kind of pushing products, you listen, try to better understand what their problems are, and then great, you might have solutions. Maybe it's your focus, maybe it's a little outside your focus, but if you can solve those problems, you'll get some business.
That's
So,
right.
yeah. And like you said, bit of again, maybe not always the default behavior of the natural thing. So you gotta shift, you gotta learn, you gotta see
Right.
what the market's giving you and then adapt. So
Yeah. And I think, Sean, alignment, that's one thing I want to highlight, because as an entrepreneur, and I'm guilty of this, and still, still improving upon this, is you can get an opportunity to be in front of someone who's got a lion share of the market. And you're like, you know what? I don't want to give away my trade secret, or I don't want to give away. And what I'm learning is, don't come in trying to solve the big dog's problems. Figure out how you can align with the big dog and just get in the room. Because I find when you get in the room and you know your product, you know your value, right? But you also know how to build real relationships. At some point in time, it's just like an athlete. Rudy got the call. Rudy was prepared. He was ready, right? When it was his moment. And I think that's one thing where, and again, some people want to be Steve Jobs, right? For me, I know where I fit in this 3 billion market, that's growing. And if it's for me to, have a big company, great. Or do I just want a piece of that real estate, right? Like Monopoly, and say, hey, I'm on the board, you know? So I think that's an important thing, of just to highlight alignment is key, especially in this time frame.
nice. Good points. And next question for you. So team typically helps businesses serve customers better, and especially not everyone has all the skills they might need to run, to serve the customers out there. So having team is an important piece. What have been your biggest learnings as an employer since you began in business?
Um, your team's perspectives, that is their reality. One, two, as the leader of any organization, company, sport, anything, home, are you articulating your vision? Does your team know where you want to take this? Versus, are you assuming, hey, I've done a great job, this is what, because again, as things change, but people also have lives outside of work.
They
And so I
do.
think, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think that hands-on and just over communicating, as my advisor always says, like, it's better to over communicate than to just say, hey, do you get it? And a lot of times you just get the head nod, and then it's like, well, why didn't you do it? Right. Well, the obvious is either A, something's going on, or B, they probably just didn't understand. Right. Now, if it's all aligned, at some point, you have to really manage to those expectations after there is clarity in the expectation of the role.
Yeah. I think that's like you said. I think if you assume that people want to do good, which I think most people do,
Sure. Me
then
too.
if some like you said, if someone isn't getting something done, it's not malicious. There's some issue, and so a lot of times, like you said, they may not really fully understand how to do it. Maybe they could use the process to help them do it. Maybe they didn't quite understand the ultimate result you were trying to get to. Maybe they thought they did a great job, but it just wasn't, right? Like there's so many reasons why it may not be working out.
Right.
And so yeah, definitely over communicating would be your better scenario, I think, in that scenario. So what about if you were to restart the company, like start fresh, right? Based on what you know from your past. What would you do different if you started over today?
Um, I wouldn't do. I would say that just be a better communicator. I think a lot of it. I was not very good at writing things down. I was great at keeping it in my head. So I think I would have started earlier of writing my thoughts down because it would be nice to go back to those notebooks. One, just to see the journey, but two, to know that again, we've never veered off the path of like the impact, right? Influence. But I would say that would have helped me to be able to articulate to a client, potential customer, teammate of just the main thing is the main thing, right? And so, yes, I would have been more prepared on my side, which would have helped me better articulate what problem I'm solving and so forth.
Yeah, we like to say clarity is power. So
Yes.
it's interesting. You tell someone, for example, hey, make sure you take notes, and it's like, well, the notes are for you. They're not for me, right? It's interesting how if you write things down, you're creating by writing it down, you're kind of creating that clarity a
That's right.
little bit better than what you had. And like you said, you can obviously go back and read it, reference it, and things like that. So, or whether it's typing it out, but yeah, that sounds fantastic. You should do that. Yeah, sounds
Yeah.
good. Good learning. So, what about are you where you expected to be at this stage?
I'm a very high achiever, so I like to be, first and goal when I may be at the 50-yard line. And that's just me being in the trenches. I would say I didn't really have an expectation. What I knew is, this again being the first company, I'd like to say my investor invested into the jockey, not the horse. And so I knew that whatever it was that we were building, um, that I was going to be successful. Now, what that success from a dollar amount looked like, I didn't know just because this has been such a fluid, space. And so I would say we are in a position now where we're able to take it to that next level. Would I have expected that? Yes, because again, I know thyself, and I know what I'm capable of, and I know what we're capable of as long as we stick to what we are good at and don't veer off and try to do too many things, just that one thing.
Cool. What about what's the next goal, right? So, what's the next goal or milestone if you're ready or you think you're in a place to go to that next level? What is that? What's the next goal?
Um, I would like to be truthfully, I'd like to be over $1 million in revenue. And I think that, when I tally up what that looks like, that is a good part of this market, right? As a marketing and media company. Um, and just from there, I think it's just continuing to build a line and just be a good slice of this big pie in this college sports marketing and impact, area that we play in. So seven
Nice.
figures.
There you go. I like it. And let's go for high seven figures. Why
I like
not?
that. I like it.
Nice. Well, before we get into the last question, how can others learn more about your company, Greg? How do they get in contact?
Sure. So you can go to our website, team, TEAM, NILO, NILO.com. You can always reach out to me directly, info@teamnilo.com. I am very responsive, within a couple hours, unless there's something family going on. Because again, I exist to take care of customers that need better visibility and to amplify their mission. And so that's the easiest way to get in touch.
Nice. I like it. And last question, any special offers you'd like to offer any listeners?
Yeah, I would say the first person to reach out, within reason. I am looking to continue to build local relationships. And so, one story, 2, 3 minute kind of vision to show what we're able to do, and whether that's aligning that with a local, athlete, or just focusing solely on the company. But definitely building local is something that I have not done a very good job of doing, and I really want to be able to own kind of this market around the DFW Metroplex.
Nice. So you're saying you'll do a 2 or 3 minute story or something
Correct.
about them? Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, Greg, thanks a bunch for joining us and telling us some of the details and tips and tricks, things that have helped so far in your journey. And thank you to the audience for watching and listening. And until the next time, make it a great day and appreciate you being on, Greg.
Thank you, Sean.